Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to be going over female basic expressions the same way as I did the male basic expressions. So I'm going to be doing three front view expressions of happy, sad, and angry, and I'm going to be doing some little bit of character design on each of them just so we can kind of get in the mood and the storyline for these. So I'm going to be drawing once again a nice, head here. So I'm going to start off with the cranium. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller than the previous one because it was a little bit too tight. So I'm going to be going ahead and making sure they're small enough. So let's go ahead and start off with our cranium. Cranium can be a bit relatively big. And then we can go ahead and draw a center line, which is the middle of the circle. I would say end it about almost halfway or a little bit smaller, just to give it a cuter look. And then drag everything down and about almost halfway to the chin point. You want to round this out to the cheekbone or the jawline. You have to round it out and then have that effect. So then what we can do afterwards is that we can once again match the other side. Sometimes a lot of this is just estimating. So of course I'm not going to make it too thin. I'm not going to make it too thick either. I'm going to go right in the middle. And I'm going to drag it down. If it's not the same on the other side as this one, just adjust it properly. Just adjust it to your liking, and then just make sure that everything looks pretty standard. So that is our face here. Let's make the neck a little bit thinner than the guy, just to give it a more childish look. We don't want to make it too thin, so whoops, that's a little bit too thin. We want to make it just a little bit thicker. So I would say getting close to the jawline, but not really, like up to here maybe. And make sure it has a nice slope. It's sort of like a trunk, and then the trapezius comes out. So something about this thickness would work great. So I'm going to go ahead and pause, and then I'm going to replay once all these heads are drawn in this way. So I will be right back. Alright, so now let's get started on drawing the expressions. I'm going to label these. So this is happy, sad, and angry. And I will have, individual looks for each of them just to give a nice variety. So let's get started on the happy one. Let's zoom in on her just so we can get a good look. I'm going to try to do this slowly here. I think that looks pretty good. So let's zoom in on her face so we can see more clearly what she's going to look like. So because this is a happy girl, I want to give her some round eyes. Now, of course, these vary depending on your character. Of course, if you have sharper eyes for your girl, you can just round them out just a little bit and make them a little bit more open so they look more happy and cheerful. So I have my eye line. A little bit on I'm going to just indicate my eyebrow line. I'm going to draw in my nose line and my mouth line. So I'm going to be drawing the classic open mouth kind of smile look. So first we can go ahead and just draw our eye. So this will be pretty similar to the previous girl that I drew. Her eyes will be pretty round. Notice how round it is, and there's like a kind of like a oval feel to it. So I make the top arch pretty high and then lower it down, making sure that there's ensured thickness because it just looks cuter that way. I don't know what it is, but sometimes adding some nice darkness gives a nice contrast, so I think that's why it looks very cute. Add some eyelashes if you want. I like to add them in different areas, such as, kind of like where it begins to slope down, closer to the edge, and somewhat in the middle. So it's up to you where you want to put them. Obviously, don't make them super evenly spaced. Make them sort of uneven in their spacing. So one could be up here and then two could be close together. That gives some nice variety. Drawing the eye line or the eyelid. And let's draw in our eyeball. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, I like to give a little bit of a spacing between the two so it looks more open. And similar to the other guy, or the happy expression for the guys, I'm making the eyebrow a lot more upward in the angle. So it looks like she's kind of raising her eyebrows a little bit. So now we can go ahead and replicate this. Take your width of one eye, roughly replicate it to the other side. So I would say it starts about here And then we can once again just draw in the other side. Just make sure that we have some breathing room between the edge of the face and the edge of the eyes, because that is how it is in real life. Once again, once we have confirmed our shape, we can go ahead and thicken it up. Adding some eyelashes at the end. Doesn't have to be super even, but it would be nice if it were closer to even. Here we have the eyelid, and then here we have the eyebrow, which will be just about the same length. So sometimes this takes a lot of observation, as I mentioned earlier. It takes a lot of observation because your eye or your hand is starting to get used to, your hands and eyes are starting to get used to being better coordinated and observing similar looks. So I can replicate this on this other side because I know, through my through my muscle memory that this is how it's drawn. So it takes time to get this all even. It took me a while to get my faces pretty symmetrical, so don't worry if you guys don't turn it out that way. If yours don't turn out that way, it's completely normal. And don't feel too frustrated about it. I know that some of you guys want to be more professionals, and some of you are doing this as a hobby, but either way, the same thing works. It's just mileage and it's just observation a lot of the time. So about up to here, our nose line will be a bit higher this time just to make it look cuter. The lower the eyes are and the bigger the eyes are, the cuter the girl will look. Then we have our highlights. Sorry about that, I can't speak. And then here we have extra highlights because to give a girl a very nice and shimmery look, we want to add more highlights, because it gives that kind of like watery but kind of interested look, like as if she had some life in her eyes. So as you noticed in some characters, like for instance Gasai, I know I mentioned her a lot, but she's a prime example. When her eyes have no highlights whatsoever, something's wrong with her. That she's going in her psycho mode. So highlights bring this really essential part to the eyes. And of course we're going to add some blushes, because why not? It's cute. And then we can add in our mouth. So when it comes to the mouth, it can be as big as you want, but make sure it does not pass up to here. You want it just a little bit, you want it just to be about here, because when you smile, your mouth is a little bit wider, but it's not past your eyes. Unless you have a big mouth, then that's a different story. And I like to connect these two and indicate the middle line here. Same thing with the bottom. So I'm not going to draw the bottom line here or the upper line here fully, because I like the indication that it brings. And here, of course, we can give her some teeth, and that'll be good. For her ears, depending if we want to do cat ears, maybe that could be a lecture that I could do sometime, but let's give her some normal ears for now, because she's human. And that'll be about the beginning of the nose to about the beginning of the eye. And you can just indicate it really quickly. So that is her happy expression. Now let's go ahead and give her some hair. So let me zoom out. So I want to give her some pigtails because I have not explored with that yet in this section. So if I want to do some pigtails, let's give her some side bangs here. So I want to give her some side bangs that go this side here because it's cute. So I like to start off by showing where my direction of the bangs are going. So if this is primarily going this side, then I'm making most of my bangs going this way. And notice how, of course, we always have that little origin point. And then it wraps around the face nicely. It's fun drawing girls. And then what we can do is we can go on the opposite side for this side. And let's add in a framed bang on the other side here. So it kind of rounds out on both sides. So it's not just It's not just all this way, but it's a little bit this way and a little bit that way. That just gives it a more dynamic feel. So let's give her a cowlick, because why not? So let me go ahead and zoom out a lot more now, so we can see a good amount of hair. Here it is. So giving her cowlick will give her kind of like a nice spirited look. So a lot of times when people give a cowlick to a character, they use that cowlick as like an expression. So for instance, a happy one would be, or perked up one would be more like this. A downward cowlick will be more droopy, you know? And an angry one will probably be more like this, you know, zappy and all that stuff. Now that these are just examples here, I should have done it this way, but that would be a good example to look at. Now I'm going to erase this because or else I wouldn't have enough room for the other side. But I will add it on the bottom. So let me go ahead and just do that real quick. So let me just fix up her face. And let's add a little bit of the expressions here. So let's say for the cowlicks, if you want to give, let me just draw 3 heads here. 3/4. I know I do this very fast because I've just done this so many times. So don't feel, once again, don't feel discouraged when you see me do this in like a few seconds. It's very muscle memory for me. So let me go ahead and just draw this real quick. Draw 3 heads. And then last one. So using cowlicks as expressions or hair as expressions is a great idea. So that gives, you know, personality, right? I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but bear with me. So for instance, if you're going to do a happy one, it will definitely be more curled up, and you would have like a little expression up at the top. For a sad one, it'll be more drooped downward. And notice how I like to put 2 edges here. I like to put the front side and the back rather than just one side. And that's just because it looks more 3D that way. So this would be more like, you know, like droopy down look. And then for a mad or angry look, it will probably be more like zigzaggy, because it's, you know, more energetic. In fact, it will probably be more facing this way here. So this is where the cowlick is, and it's kind of facing as a Z, kind of like pointing fingers at someone. So that's how you would kind of categorize those emotions. Anyways, let's go back to her hair because we're spending too much time on that. Let's give her some pigtails, shall we? So I'm going to be drawing the back of her head here just a little bit so we can see some more depth in her head. Now let's give her some ribbons. Some ribbons would be nice for some accessories, right? So here we have the center of the bow, then it flares out, and then we can add some polka dots if we want to. So very simple ribbon. We would draw the center, out, flares out, and then we have the crease in the middle. Then we can have some little decorations. Then we can go ahead and give her some pigtails. So I like to draw shorter ones just for this example because it gives, you know, we can see the whole pigtail. Now there's different kinds of pigtails. Of course, some have this kind of shape to it. Let me just draw this on the side here. Some have this sort of shape to it where it's just very short. Some have a more wavy, more voluptuous look. And some people have a more curled look. So they have a curled tail at the end. Now these are all pretty nice to add. I think for this one I will add a more wavy look unless I change my mind. So I like to add in the big shape first. And in fact, since I changed my mind now, I'm going to add some curls to that. So if I want to add some curls, I want to start down thick to thin and then bring this shape down. Draw one side of the curl. Let's draw another curl down here in the third one. And then we can connect them by adding a little spiral down the middle. So just doing that is very, very simple. Now let's try that again. One side, 2 side, 3 side. Connecting. And that's how you create a very simple spiral. So you guys can do it that way. Now we can add some, nice hairlines here, form changes, outside strands here as well. So that is our pigtails. So very cute and happy and very nice. So here is our gloomy, sad character. And of course what we can do is we can go ahead and give her a different hairstyle in this one. So of course, I always like to erase areas that I want to not get distracted by. So usually I like to erase this whole area and then just redraw it, but you guys don't have to. So in this case, for a girl, I like to give her if she's more of a sad character, let's give her a more mature hairstyle. So a more mature hairstyle would probably be more like very straight or just more gloomy, more, just not as flashy as the happy one here, but more subdued and more just mature. So let's first start off with her face here. So now this depends on what the hairstyle, or not the hairstyle, the character is like. If she's going to be a crybaby, she's going to look very emotionally like crying. She's going to be like, meh, But in this one, I'm going to go for a more mellow look. I'm going to go for a more like shoujo kind of style, like heartbroken feel. So in this case, I'm going to give her some more mature eyes, more sloping down eyes. But in this case, I'm going to make her eyes a little bit more fuzzy. So a lot of, if you guys read shoujo manga or girls manga or romance mangas or comics, usually if you see a very feminine style, like for instance, like, let's say like Kaicho wa Maid-sama or Kami-sama Kiss, or I think that's one, or just some other shoujo kind of style animes or mangas, they have a very, very fluffy style in their eyes. So a lot of the time you would see a lot of like lines kind of focusing in on the eyes here. So I'm going to redraw it once again once I get to my, once I get to the other eye. But for the eyes, it would also be very fuzzy. So what I mean by fuzzy is a lot of not very direct and shapely, but more hazy. So in this case, I'm going to give her some more highlights, but this time it's going to be more teary-eyed. And notice how I'm making the highlights very, very light. So hazy kind of look is more, their eyes are more like linear or more shaded. Can add a teardrop and tears streaming down her face, so she's heartbroken, right? Maybe like somebody just broke up with her, or somebody that she really cares about and that they've been in a relationship for a very long time says like, oh, I can't do this anymore, I don't want to hurt you anymore, so let's break up. So you gotta make these kind of scenarios. So notice how her eyes are more full, they're more covered than, let's say, the happy version. So we want to continue that. So I'm going to go ahead and measure one eye length here. And I'm going to do this again. So notice that when I'm doing the second eye, I'm making my lines more feathery. So more delicate, more like water is being sprayed into her eyes or something like that. So it's a lot more wishy-washy. So notice how it's not the same as this bold line here, but more soft and nice and very emotional. So eyelashes, eyelid, and then we can draw in her eyeball. And then we can make her eyes a little bit fuzzier. So as if it's kind of waterlogged or something. We can give her some teardrops. And it doesn't look really emotional right now. Whoa, this looks weird. I think I will have to adjust her face just a little bit. So notice how I made a mistake here. That's fine. All we can do is just adjust the other side. So don't worry about that. I'm going to go fix that. So I'm going to make this just a little bit wider so it looks more even. Let's see, that looks a little bit better. So if it's off center by by one side, then you could just add in the other side here. So let's continue. In this case, her eyebrows would be a little bit more slanted up. You can add a little bit of a wrinkle, but in this case, you don't have to add too much because for girls, it's not as pretty that way, at least in my opinion. If you put too many wrinkles, it will make her look old. Once again, I'm going to adjust this head here because it looks a little bit lopsided. There. Now let's add her ears. Let's give her some elf ears for some variety. Let's give her some pointed ears. So if you want to just point it at the top and then slope it down. That's how you draw elf ears. Very simple. So, looks good so far. Now let's add in her nose, which will be like a little dot. And let's give her a blush because, you know, when you cry, you have a very red face. And for her, I would give her a more kind of like a open mouth, but it's kind of just showing her teeth. So just by doing that, making her lips not as downward but more upward gives a very cute look. And if you want, you can add a little bit of lip shade to that. So now let's zoom out and let's get started with her hair. If you want, you can even just add a little bit of a hand here, but we don't have to do that. Let's give her just that little bit of expression there. So since she's an elf character and she's just more mature, let's give her some droopier bangs. So let's give her like a very long hairstyle. So I'm going to have one big bang kind of parting her face. And then I'm going to have two bangs framing her face. And I'm going to erase some of these because that's distracting. If you have to cover some areas of her face or her ears, for example, go ahead and erase it. Or just even don't draw it at all if you want to save some time. So I'm going to frame the face with these two bangs. I'm going to add more layering on top. Let's add a little bit of her ear kind of poking out from the bangs here. So notice I'm always layering the hair. I'm making sure that, you know, there's depth. So not just one strand, not just two. I'm just making sure that every layer gives it thickness. So I can even add the back strands. And some strands in front. So that's what it looks like. Let me zoom out again. So that's what the whole looks like. So that is our sad face. It's our sad character. Now let's go and do our angry face. So maybe this will be more of a hothead as mentioned earlier. So maybe let's give her a more sporty hairstyle. So I'm just going to be, you know, correcting her face here and there if I need to. This looks good so far. I like it. So if I see her head is a little bit lopsided on this side, I'm just going to correct it. You know, I can either bring it to here, erase the outer line here. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as is and then correct it as I go. So once again, we put in our feature lines, our eye line, nose line, and then, or nose line that could be a little bit higher, and then our mouth line. And this can vary because this is, she could have her mouth, you know, be opened or shouting, or she could just have a more of like a pouty face. And I think I would probably go for more of a tsundere look, more of a aggressive kind of look that shows that this girl is hot and cold. So let's go ahead and do that. For this girl, I want to give her some sharper eyes. So let's give her some half round, half sharp. So what I mean by half round and half sharp is that it's sort of round, giving that innocent-like feel, but it's rounded off because it's sort of like a boxy look. So I shouldn't really say rounded, sharp look. It should be more of like a boxy look that kind of gives a more sharper look, but still has that kind of, has a kind of aggressive look. So as you can see, it looks sort of round, but it's definitely sharpened. So we can go and draw in the pupil in the bottom. Let's do the other side. Take it over on the other side here. Let's say it's approximately here. Then draw in the basic shape. So anyways, so now we can go ahead and push that up. Then draw the other side down. It's almost kind of like a little hexagon. So by doing that, you can sort of see the shape already being built, and then you thicken it, and that's it. So drawing eyes is not that hard. It just takes time. So of course I'm going to fix this side here so the other side is even. But let's first draw the rest of the eye. So the rest of the eye is more kind of open look. It's more of an open look rather than a full covered look. So what I mean by that is I have a good amount of roundness towards the top of the eye, but it's not super filled that it is like kind of she's closing her eyes. So now let's fix her face. Let's draw in this side, and then let's go ahead and widen this part here. There. That looks a little bit better. And for her more angry look, we want to draw the eyebrows straight down. And notice how it's cutting pretty close to the edge of the eye. This one we can add a little bit of wrinkle here because to show she's angry. And let's give her a nose. And let's dilate her pupils or make it a bit smaller to show some anger. Let's, of course, still shade the top part of her eye because that still casts a shadow. Let's add a little bit of detail at the bottom. So let's give her a pouty look. So rather than a shouting look, I'm going to just slant her mouth a little bit. And then just add a little bit of a pouty look here. So, or I could instead let me think. Give her kind of like a pursed look, maybe? I don't like it that much. I think I'll probably either go with I think I'll probably just go with a standard mad look. So her mouth would be more just downward. Then we can go ahead and add a little bit of an effect. So what I mean by an effect is we can give her a little pout, like a cloud here, and that kind of shows she's going like, like humph, So doing that gives a nice expression. And let's give her a little bit of a blush as well, because why not? And let's give her a little vein pop. So we have our little expression here. Now let's go ahead and add our hair. So when it comes to the hair, I don't make it, I'd like to kind of keep the base of the head pretty vague because I just want to know how high it is, because this can always change a little bit, you know, like especially when you add hair, it's not going to stay the same forever. So I always keep it a little bit vague, and I always erase and just redraw. So that's just something that I do. You guys don't have to do that. So giving her a more of a feisty look, let's give her some parted bangs here, a more spiky look. Let's give her some parted bangs. So one side is down. We have the inner part of the hair. And then we can go ahead and draw in the first layer. So I always like to start thick and then go thin and then part them, just because it looks nicer. There's just this kind of aesthetic thing around it. Let's do the same thing for the other side. Part it. Part it. So notice how these kind of sharp angles give her that kind of more mean, aggressive look. Of course, you don't want to overdo it. This looks a little bit overdone, so I'm going to soften it. I'm going to make this a little bit higher, and I'm going to soften this. There. So what do we do about this part? You know, this looks kind of awkward right now. Well, what you can do is you can just simply draw in the back of her head. And of course, depending on what kind of hairstyle she's having, maybe she could have a more high ponytail style. How about that? So her high pony, if you want to give her a high ponytail, what you can do is just draw in the back of her head, but draw motion lines leading all the way up to that point. Make sure she has a good amount of cushion on the other side of her head as well. In fact, I would actually give her some bangs just to give her head some cushion. So it doesn't look like, you know, it's completely bald on one side. And actually, because I mentioned cat ears earlier, I'm going to give her some cat ears, because why not? So I'm going to erase two parts of her head, and then I'm going to add in the ears. So to draw cat ears, what you guys can do is you can just draw a triangle, make it rounded at the bottom, and then sharp at the top, and then slope it down. Let's do that on the other side. Then we can add a fold down here and down here. And then we can add some inner fluff, because cats have inner fluff, right? And notice how I'm still varying my shapes within the curves here. Then we can just refine it. Then let's give her a, since she has cat ears, oh, I forgot to add the inside of the hair. I think that looks pretty good. If you want to add some texture, you know, you can go ahead and add in a little bit of texture at the front. That can also be a linear version or visual difference between the two. So, like for instance, this can just be like a visual difference between colors. So let's say, for instance, you haven't colored her hair yet, but you're showing this as a difference in texture or in color. So let's say this is white tipped and this is more like purple hair, for example. You can use these lines to show texture of difference. So yeah. Now let's zoom out. Let's give her some hair on the back. So let's go ahead and let's hope I didn't smudge anything. Yeah, it's good. Let's give her a ribbon. So it's pretty similar to the previous ribbon. And let's give her a little high ponytail. So I like to add the ponytail with a little bump and two sides of the hair. So this is the front and that's the back. And then what I can do later is I can bring the hair on one side and then have it curl around just to show that this is a ponytail. So that is pretty much that for expressions. Let me know what you guys think. We did a happy, a sad, and an angry expression. So let me know what you guys think. Hopefully that this helped a lot in creating some characters and some story. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.